shoot, if my D ain't worth nothing, well, I'm gonna give it to you, and you get some D, and you get some D.
Right, everybody gets some D.
Everybody gets some D. Here you go, take it. So I just said, here, let me just go ahead and spread love around. So that's what happened, and God reminded me of that on my vow of abstinence episode. I was writing the letter, and I said, I finally believe that I am worth the wait. And in writing that letter, God took me back to that broken 19-year-old boy who heard and believed the lie that a girl told me that my wife, if it was her, would be getting nothing. I was trying to give her commitment, and all she wanted was just let's have sex. Because, in her young mind, she was probably saying that, everybody else had this with you, well, why can't I have that too? And I was trying to give her something that no one else has ever had from me. And that was loyalty. That was fidelity. That was actual my I do. That was every bit of me.
Hello, and welcome to the Bold Black Girls Podcast. I'm Aries.
And I'm Kim.
And I'm super excited today because I know I say that we have special guests every time, but this is our homie today who we're going to introduce you all to. We're so excited. He's a 3-time regional Emmy-nominated filmmaker, national playwright, director, videographer, editor, producer, all the things. You've probably seen him somewhere or some of his work somewhere. And he is also the host of the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Please welcome to the Bold Black Girls Podcast, Lateris R. Whitfield.
What's up?
And your honor special for you.
Good. Give me my applause.
Yes.
Listen, I'm so excited to be here with y'all today. How y'all doing?
We're great. So I have my star earrings on because I know I'm dealing with a star
today. Love it.
So if y'all watch his podcast, he starts with the applause. So I had to give him the little, I was like, let me go and use my applause button for one time.
Yeah, give me some applause. Make me feel like I'm being seen by somebody.
You are being seen for sure.
You are seen. You are chosen.
Amen.
Well, I gotta give the backstory on how I even found the podcast and you and all that. And it, of course, is my girl over here, Kim, who this is what we do. We share articles, we share podcasts, we share books. That is our love language as friends. That has been our connecting point of how we really started growing as friends. And so one morning she just sent me you need to check out this podcast because it was about singleness.
Yes, it was about singleness. And I was going on a walk because it was during the pandemic, right? So I started walking every morning. And one day I was like, Dear Future Wifey, and you had an episode about singleness. I don't know if it was Raquel.
I'm about to tell you what it was.
I don't know if it was Raquel because I know Raquel's mother. And so I was like, so my daughter went to St. Philip's.
Yeah.
And I love her mother. Her mother is absolutely amazing. Yeah. She was life-changing in my daughter's life. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is her daughter. And they're talking about singleness. So I started listening to it and I sent it to Aries. I was like, girl, you need to listen to this.
And I'm trying to think of the name. Why it's not coming up?
It was that episode. Hers was called Preference versus Purpose.
Yes. See? That was it. That was the one. And so I listened to the audio. And I'm the type where if I like a podcast, I will try to find if they have a video version. Good. So then I got on, I was like, oh, you know what? Halfway through listening to it, I said, this probably, I think you said something about YouTube. Yeah. So I was like, let me go on here. And then I just started binge watching. I mean, all the episodes, which you had just started it. You only had a few episodes at that point, but I definitely slid in his DMs and was like, oh my God. Because I was like, every episode, it was a conversation that was happening that was definitely relatable in alignment with where I was at and what I was doing. So I was like, I'm just loving this podcast right now, And then I said, I probably sound like one of them crazy people up in somebody's.
You actually didn't because you know how to represent yourself. You're not no crazy chick. So I can see straight through it and see who you are. And then you and I become really good and close friends. So, you know, I appreciate how strategic God was in introducing us to each other.
Really, really, really. Because I'm like, you just never know.
Welcome. Y'all welcome.
I know.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for the intro.
You're welcome. I think I've been following you because you've done some plays here in Texas, and someone I was dating actually, so it was like, yeah, I went to school with him, and I just started following you, and I was like, okay, this guy is onto something. And then when I saw the Dear Future Wifey podcast, it was awesome, especially during the pandemic when we were in that phase of like, okay, what are we gonna do with life? And I just was like, let me just walk and listen.
So
I'll go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I think you might lead me into what I was about to say.
Well, I was gonna say, and we'll lead into that for sure, because I'm like, tell us really, like, okay, LaTerrace R. Whitfield, you know, everyone knows you as that. That's your star name, you know, that's your name and your star name. But you've done a lot of stuff in the past that maybe back then, you know, you were putting these efforts out there. You're doing plays with churches and, you know, stuff like that. Now where you are, like, are you seeing that all of that kind of led you up to this? Talk about a little bit about how, like, who is LaTerrace? How did he get to this point
So in 2002, I started writing national plays. I said, God, I want to go on national tour. I saw a lot of the urban plays back then, and I was saying that it was more slapstick comedy. And I said, I want to offer something that was more, had more substance behind it. And so in doing so, I wrote my first national play called What Men Don't Tell. And What Men Don't Tell talked about the issues that men have that we don't share with our significant lovers and whatnot. So it was dealing with power, money, and sex and the effects those things have on us as males. And that show went on to garner $20 million in ticket sales. 220,000 people saw the show across the country. It starred Kenny Lattimore, his then wife at the time, Shantae Moore, Dottie Peoples, Lenny Williams, Lil G from Silk. And then at times I had Tashina Arnold in the show, just a gamut of different people. Christopher Williams was in the show. And I recognized then the power of speaking about relationships. When you talk about love, everybody is trying to figure out this thing called love. And I said, you know what, God, I want to continue exploring that. So every play that I did tackled love, talked about relationships, even when I didn't even know much about relationships, because at the time, I had a show on national tour. I was 24 years old. So how much do I really know about relationships? I had a daughter that I had fathered when I was 18 years old. And so I said, okay, God, you got me on this journey. So several plays later, different business ventures that I got into, from having a clothing line, managing artists, all the way to doing this podcast. All that was in alignment for me to do what I do now, because the guests that I have on my podcast are people that I've worked with, different celebrities I've worked with in the past. The merchandise was birthed out of my experience of doing merchandise for my national plays, as well as doing my clothing brand with schools and different nonprofits and government institutions. And so it just all came and converged with this podcast. And so I just thank God about how intentional he was at, you know, he that beginneth the good work.
Come on.
He started way back then perfecting this thing. So, you know, when people see stuff and they go, oh my God, this took off that fast. No, I'm 43 years old. So that was 43 years in the making.
Right. That is so true, how people could look at something and definitely, because I'll be like you get on YouTube and boom, like you definitely had a growth that looks like it was like super quick in the YouTube world. Like it really
is a lot in YouTube. Yes, it is a lot in YouTube. I don't take anything away from it, but I just believe that it was my obedience that brought it to pass. Because at the end of the day, during the pandemic, my money just stopped. A lot of my work is with school districts. I'm fully self-employed, got my own business, and everything just stopped. And I was like, what we about to do now? Oh, I'm scared. Oh, Jesus, I'm scared.
Start him and sing hymns.
Oh, boy, it scared me. So then God said, LaTerrace, you've always made everybody else the client. Now it's time for you to make yourself your client. And I said, He said, you're always taking everybody else's vision, putting visuals behind it. Now I want you to do this thing. I want you to do your podcast. And I was like, oh Lord. I said, what I'm gonna do, just sit here and talk to myself, because they say that the most successful podcasts are podcasts similar to you guys, where it's a co-host situation. An individual podcast is like you're starting off wrong, because you're sitting there talking. No one really wants to hear someone just talking by themselves. And I don't like doing lives where I'm talking by myself. I didn't do all that stuff. And God said, I want you to take people on your personal journey as you discover, uncover, and recover love. And I said, that's very scary, because the way I live my life is I'm extremely transparent. So that means that now I'm going to open up myself to the world and allow them to see what I don't know, you know. And God said, that's exactly what I want you to do. Take them on the journey, take them on this journey, and let them go through this thing called life and this thing called love as you try to figure it out. And I said, well, I don't want to be like these other relationship gurus that try to tell you 5 steps to getting a man, 5 steps to getting a husband, 5 steps for tapping into your femininity and attracting the person that you want. I said, I don't know all that. He said, good. I want you to just be you.
Just thank you for that.
Thank you. That would not have attracted us to your podcast at all.
That. And keep us in tune, right?
Yeah. And so I was like, is that going to really work? And then I said, okay, well, maybe I need to come up with a powerful quote, because I love the TV show Criminal Minds, and Criminal Minds always starts off with this great quote that's going to be the foundation of that episode. And so I was like, and I love quotes. So I said, maybe I should come up with a great quote every episode. I said, no, just get on there and just talk. I was like, well, how am I talking to people? Do I need to get a cue card and ask what the questions are? What? Just talk. I want you to naturally do what you do with your friends every day and sit there and talk and let me just guide the conversation. I said, wow, that's extremely uncomfortable. And I said, well, what about times when I can't? So you got to think about it. To get guests, it's in the middle of a pandemic. One thing that I can say how intentional God was about my podcast, I had guests on the majority of the episodes sitting right next to me. Neither one of us got COVID. I were flying people in from other states, and the haters never said anything on social media, be like, y'all don't have masks on. Why aren't y'all not 6 feet apart?
I was definitely thinking about it though. It wasn't haters, but I was like, whenever, even with church and stuff, like you'll see them on stage doing praise worship, I'll be like, dang, that's a lot of breathing.
I was like, God got them covered.
I like cover.
Yes.
But not one person ever commented like that in a season where people were commenting on that all the time, when people were just standing next to each other. Not one person said that. And God told me, said, go ahead and do it, and you will not get COVID. I said, I'm never going to tell anybody that. They're going to think I'm one of them crazy Christian folks that be talking about God is going to protect me, but he did. I just got the vaccine 2 weeks ago, or a week ago. Yeah, a week and a half ago. I think my second shot had come up this Tuesday. Dang, that was quick. Yeah, it's coming up this Tuesday. So I'm like, dang, okay. So yeah, so that's what happened. And so when I look at how intentional God was with this podcast, I recognize it wasn't just for my own healing, but it was to heal the nation. 30% of my subscribers are in other countries. And one thing that I find to be a through line is we're all trying to figure out this thing called love.
Yeah.
I love it. And you talk about alignment a lot. Let's go back, right? Because you were a playwright before you even come up to this podcast. As a young man, I'm always curious to understand, who were you as this young man? And was that talent brewing in high school, in elementary school? What led you up to this moment of who Laterrence is?
I was a kid that always got in trouble for talking too much.
Same here.
They said the same thing about Oprah.
Yeah, it's like, he always talking. And then I would try to whisper, but my voice was so heavy that the teacher be like, Laterrence, I was like, but I'm whispering. They're like, your voice is too heavy. It's carrying. We can hear you. I'd be like, say, okay, you say. And then they'd be like, it's just vibrating the whole room. So I was like, I said, Laterrence, you can't whisper. So you just can't talk. And I was like, man, this is jacked up. And so I was always in trouble for talking all the time, but I was also one of the people and one of those kids that always, if you ever told me I couldn't do something, I would always try to figure it out. And my mom said, if anyone ever wants you to be successful, just say you can't be it. and then you're going to do everything to prove everybody wrong. And so that's who I was, as a person that said, let me figure out something. And I'm not afraid to fail. I'm one of those people that say, hey, there was a saying that says nothing beats an effort but a try. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to try it. And if you don't like it, then you say, you know what? I suck at this. I'm do pretty well at this. So let me try something else. And so I'm always trying to reinvent myself. So as a young kid, I was involved in theater. And then that morphed, and what really got me in the theater outside of the plays I would do at church, growing up in the Pentecostal church.
Represent.
Yeah, but I grew up in an all-white church.
Ooh.
And it was only 2 black families, me and another family, and then 1 Hispanic family. And that was it. And everybody else was white. And I went to vacation Bible schools and went to kids camp and did all the stuff. And here I was as this poor family hanging around a lot of these white families that were pretty well off. And I had this one friend that would give me his hand-me-down clothes. And so I would go to school and I'm wearing the first, so y'all know about Jabot jeans. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God,
I just said that to somebody last night, like Jabots was it.
Yes,
you thought you made it when you had some Jabots.
And when you had some Cavariccis, they would call them Z Cavariccis, however you want to pronounce it. I don't know. But I had me some Cavariccis that had all those buttons down the front. You know what I'm saying? And you was doing something. Well, my family couldn't afford that, but my white friends could afford it. And so when they got tired of them, they're like, here, Latarius, you can have this. And I'm going to my school in the hood with some Jabot jeans, I thought I was doing something. And so I was always involved in one foot in the hood, the other foot in this other world that I wasn't privy to. And one foot in the hood in the secular world, I'm riding around toting pistols on my bike. And then the other world is the church. And so I was kicked out of my high school when I was 16 years old. I was kicked out of Skyline High School for taking a gun to school. I was taking the gun to school. Look at Kim saying, oh my God, he's a thug.
Why are you taking a gun to school? What happened?
I was selling. That was my entrepreneurial endeavors. So what happened was my brother was playing with the gun in the bathroom at home, and he shot the mirror out. And so I was like, oh my God, we got to get rid of this gun. Because if my dad found out about it, he was going to take the gun. So I said, and he had dropped out of school at this time. So he said, listen, I want you to take the gun to school and sell it. And so that's what I did. I took it to school and I pulled it out during the teacher. It was Mr. Abercrombie, my history teacher, Mr. Abercrombie. And I pulled the gun out in class while we were watching the movie. And he looked my way and I shoved it back into my little starter jacket. So I'm trying to paint the picture for you. I had my little starter jacket on, my little cowboy starter coat. And I had my gun. And then he just was peculiar about what I had, but he didn't quite, come and investigate. So by the end of the day, he sent Youth Action. Youth Action was the security of the school. And they came by my last class period. And right before that class period, my best friend named Montre Bible. That's his name, Bible. And he was on fire for God at the time. And he came to me. He was like, man, the word is getting around school that you have this gun. Let me take it. I have track practice. Let me take that. And no one will suspect that I have it because he was a little goody two-shoes. And I just feel like you need to, offload that with me. Oh, no, I'm good. This is the last period of the day. I'm good. As soon as I walk into my 7th period class, Youth Action comes and say, can we see Mr. Whitfield? They done got me. Oh, Lord Jesus.
He said the Lord sent his angel to come get the thing, and I didn't even listen.
Oh, yes. And then they pulled me out, and then they was on the walkie-talkie. They asked for the other guy that was in my 1st period class. So that's how I made the connection to be like, Mr. Abercrombie done snitched on me. And so they asked for him, and they called the Youth Action, another person, to go check our lockers. And they went and checked our lockers without asking me, do I have the weapon on me? And I'm just walking around with they breaking the locks off the lockers and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, God, I got this 38 pistol in my doggone pants. And we go to Youth Action. They said, take off your coat. And I just pulled the gun out and laid it on the table. And they grabbed me and put my arms behind my back, slammed me on the desk, and handcuffed me because they was just frantic. Oh my God! It was this guy like, I handed you the gun. Why are you so scared?
Why y'all doing all that?
I gave it to you without a fight. So then they handcuffed me, and then they were walking me down the hallway. Now I'm sitting up here walking as fast as I can because the school bell's about to ring for the end of the day, and the whole class, the whole hallways. Skyline at that time had 4,500 students. And so I'm like, I cannot see, it's crazy because when I was walking around the school, I'm walking around all boastful. I got my pistol, I got swag on 1,000. Then I'm sitting up here, I want to pull my coat over my head like they do in those news interviews when they done caught the person or whatever. And I'm walking real fast, like, slow down. I was like, no, come on. So I'm walking real fast. I get in the police car. And then that is what introduced me to theater, because I was sent to an alternative school, which is called Lacey. The acronym stands for the Learning Alternative Center for Expelled Youth. And there they introduced me to theater because they had this dramaturg, shout out to David Marquez, who's been my mentor for years. And Mr. Davis, Richard Davis, who is still my good friend to this very day, who's a principal there. And they said, hey, we want to do a psychodrama where we grab about 7 of the kids here in this school of 100 and create a psychodrama to hear what they go through on a daily life. And we're going to produce this play. And they did it. It was sponsored in part by Bank of America and DISD. And they put money up for it. We did the psychodrama. It became a published play. And that introduced me to theater. And then years later, God birthed me into becoming a national playwright.
Look at that. I'm so glad I asked that question.
I am too, because that is like a real, you don't know why the story is the story. We think that everything is literally like, oh, this is happening to me this way, and why this and that.
And this is bad, but look how he turns around for good.
He is writing a story.
And you just told a story. I'm over here like captivated.
And I normally don't get into that conversation because no one ever asked the journey of that. And so I remember when I was on tour one day and I was in Portsmouth, Virginia, and I was doing an interview and they were asking me questions about how I started in theater. And I went into, I saved up my money. And while I saved up my money, I was working and doing X, Y, Z. I told them the story that would be the Shark Tank story.
Sounds good. Yeah.
And then they told me straight up. And then I went in and I said, they asked me something. I think they asked me, this mother called in. That's what it was. This mother called in and said, I have this son that's living a wayward life. How can I reach him? And I start sharing the story about how I was toting pistols and shooting at people and all this crazy stuff. And then the lady stopped and said, we want to hear more about that story. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I opened up. And the first time in a public forum, I shared that story of my journey of being this 16-year-old kid that was toting pistols and trying to sell drugs a little bit and doing all this crazy stuff that I was doing that led to me using my purpose and saying, you know what, God, I think you have more. You have more for me than for me to keep getting arrested and locked up and stuff. I said, let me change my life. Let me do better. And
so you have a spiritual background, and that permeates in your life, even today through your podcast. I be telling them all the time, like, Pastor, you need to go ahead and preach. Quit playing out here.
People are trying to get me a pastor. I think that what God is
doing, that's what you're doing with your platform. Exactly. His platform right now, you definitely are getting the word out. I mean, you're getting the word out. Exactly.
That's why I say it's the joke on me, because for years, God has, even when I was like 10 years old, it was prophesied that I'll be preaching and all that stuff. Then when I got 18 and I rededicated my life to Christ, I would go and I would preach at churches and stuff. I would preach, do revivals, do all that stuff. And then I shied away from the church because I started seeing the humanity of pastors, and it turned me off. I was like, well, if this Bible stuff don't work for them, then I'm doing too much. I'm trying too hard. You know what I'm saying? And so it made me shy more away from the office of a pastor role and just said, hey, I'm just going to be me and I'm just trying to figure this thing out. And then God, as he would see fit, would have me do this podcast where it's serving his purpose and ministering to people all across the world, but it's not in the sense of I'm trying to tell you what to do. I'm literally saying, hey, let's figure this thing out together. And
it reminds me of
what the pastor should do.
It reminds me of when someone is starting to go on a weight loss journey, right? And they are like, I'm 300 pounds today. We're going to start every week I'm gonna show you my process. That is a lot of vulnerability and transparency that he's gotta stick to it now, right? Because you're putting it out there and everybody's watching you and rooting for you and all that. And I feel like with your platform, and we'll talk about, I want to really know like kind of how you got the name Dear Future Wifey. What was the catalyst that started, you know, the idea behind the podcast? Because he writes these letters, y'all, at the end of the episodes. That's like, whoa, like, oh my God, he writes a letter to his future wife. But anyway, tell us about like what was the catalyst that was like, okay,
that led up
this
to
is the concept that I'm gonna go off of when I'm, sharing my journey. We're gonna use this as an idea.
So the concept, I'll talk about the concept, but I have yet to reveal what led to this whole thing. That's going to be in a movie that I'm writing. I call it The Pain Behind the Podcast.
Okay.
And, but it's called Dear Future Wife. It's a movie that I'm in the midst of writing. But what led to the concept was I wrote a letter back in 2018 to my future wifey. And I was writing letters on Facebook. Well, no, it wasn't wifey, it was wife at the time. I'll write letters to my future wife. And I've done about 4 or 5 of them. And then when the pandemic came around, God said, hey, I want you to do this podcast. Now, I was about 3 months prior to that, Bashe was on my podcast, and he has this book called Dear Future Wife. And he reached out to me because I would write these letters called Dear Future Wife. And I was in a part of this group called Pray for Your Future Spouse Challenge. And I wrote one of those letters on there, and it went viral within that group. And word got back to him that here's this guy using his trademark name, Dear Future Wife. So he reached out to me. This is just a trip because he and I just had dinner last night. He was in Dallas. And he said, hey, man, I don't know no better way of saying this, but I own the trademark for Dear Future Wife. You can't use that. And I said, well, I'm not using it in commerce. I'm using it in just speech. So trademark doesn't protect you in using it in speech. It protects you in commerce. I'm not making any money off of this. I said, if that's the case, you need to go after everybody making these Facebook posts and Instagram posts talking about Dear Future Wife. And he was just like, all right, well, I'm just letting you know. And I said, oh, I got him then. Forget it then. I'm going to call it Dear Future Wifey. Now, let me tell you what I said. This is so interesting.
So you had an attitude. You had a little attitude. You had a little attitude.
I had an attitude and a challenge. I said, this is what I'm doing.
Going back to
I'm going to change it to Dear Future Wifey. Then when I did my podcast, I said, I'm going to make my podcast so big that he's going to want to be on it. I said that he's going to want to be on my podcast.
See, that's that stubbornness that your parents was talking about. Mama said, you tell them what you can't do. And look at them. Okay, so we're seeing the thread.
And I tell you, that launched in April 15th, and by October, I submitted my stuff. I got an attorney to submit my stuff for trademark, and then by March or April, he reached out to me and said, "I love what you're doing on your podcast." And I said, wow, this is interesting. So then I responded back to him, man, thank you, King. This is great, man. Blah, 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 blah. And then he made a comment about how he would want to be on there one day. I said, God, you are fun, man.
Look at God.
And then I said, all right, come on. And then I invited him on the podcast. He had gotten married at the time. And he and his wife.
That episode too.
And they came on. It was phenomenal. And now we buddies. You know what I'm saying? And it's so cool because just yesterday we was eating. He was like, you know what? I'm not renewing my trademark for Dear Future Wife. I'm finna let it go. He said, I have no use for it. He said, I got my wife. I don't need it anymore. And I said, when I say you can't make this stuff up, you can't make up God's intentionality on how he tries to do what he does if you were just willing. Like me and him have connected. I went and hosted one of his conferences that he and his wife did called When Love Aligns back in August. They flew me out there to host their conference. And like, that's my boy now. You know what I'm saying? And just how intentional God was. I said a prayer last year where I said, God, I want you to give me more male friends. I said, I have nothing but female friends. I said, I need some balance in my life. I want some males in my life that we can chop it up with and be cool with. And then God started bringing males in my life. You know what I'm saying?
He will do that. I just was talking. We had a therapist on our podcast last week, and we were talking about, because she said, how did y'all, like after we recorded and everything, she's like, how did y'all become friends? You know? And I was like, well, I was in a place when I moved to Texas, I did not want any new friends. I literally had a ringtone for all my friends back home. That was No New Friends by Drake every time they call. Cause I'm like, my friends in the Bay, I don't got no friends out here, you know. And there was a point where when I went through my divorce, I started going to the gym, you know, just working out, getting my mind right and all that. And I'm about to be back out here in these streets, you know. But I was like, Lord, I think I need to actually I need a village, you know. I don't have really people here, you know. And it's like, as soon as I started going to the gym, I see this girl twerking upside down in a Zumba class.
And she was twirling. She wasn't upside down, but she was twirling.
There were a bunch of women in there. And it was like, of all the women, like she was the one that I felt like she was the right person to start with. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I'm like, look at that. And then like now I have a whole bunch of, you know, women friends that are real genuine people. But I'm like, that prayer, they talk about Sierra's prayer.
Right, Sierra's prayer.
I'm like, but that friendship prayer is real because you do need people around you that are positive, that are going to support what you're doing, that y'all are also connected in purpose and stuff like that. Again, she sent me your podcast. So, you know.
And here we are.
And men need to have men friends. This came up when I was on the dating show where I asked the guy about like, who are your friends? Because you need to know who people are around, you know? Yeah. And it does make an eyebrow raise when a guy has a whole bunch of women friends. You'd be like,
who is discipling him?
Okay.
Who is discipling? Y'all can get holy with it. Who's discipling?
Who is discipling you?
That's her question.
Who's discipling you? Who are you discipling?
Exactly.
Iron sharpens iron. Okay?
Now, when she meets a guy that is like super positive and got great quality, she'd be like, "Now, who are you discipling?" That's her question for them.
And challenge that.
And then the other way around, when it's the other way around. So yeah. So talk to us. So before we get to the Dear Future Wifey, you are very open on his podcast. He calls it Keeping It Lit, Living Intentionally, Transparently.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's been very open about the fact that you went through a divorce.
Yeah.
And you've been divorced for what, 5 years now?
It'll be 6 years, December 29th.
And so this is really your journey is because you want to do it right the next time, right? 100%. And so you're really doing a lot of pre-work to get there and talking to people so that you can learn how to be, you know, make the best choice and be the best version of yourself going in.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one thing that you said that really, like, it's a lot of stuff. I'll be texting Laterras, like I'll watch the podcast and I'll be like, I'll just be sending like quotes of things that he said. And he will talk about really the men and how they have not been taught to appreciate their bodies.
Yes.
And like value themselves. That's something that we're taught.
Yeah.
It's like, don't give your body to no man and don't be doing it. But men aren't taught that.
Never.
Talk to us about your philosophy kind of around that and what God gave you in that area.
What God told. So God took me back to when I was 19 years old and I was dating this girl. It was my first Christian relationship. Okay. And I was dating this girl and I was like, I want to marry her. I was 19. She was 18. She was in college. She was going to TWU. And we were talking and I said, I want to marry you, but she was a virgin. One day she said this to me. It was a moment that we had in her dorm room where she was trying to have sex with me. And I said, hold on. I said, you're a virgin. I don't want to have sex with you. I said, I want to wait until we get married. And she said, well, listen, you waiting on me, you're getting someone that no one has had. She said, me waiting on you, I'm not getting nothing. I'm getting somebody that everybody has had. Wow. And I said, God dang it. Boy, I mean, Lord Jesus, I'm just working out in these streets. And so
I had you.
Well, I mean, I've had my experiences, but I thought I still was worth a little something. I thought
my value just went down.
Right.
Yeah. I heard this thing about born again virgin. Is that even a thing? But hey, I done gave my life to Christ and I know I got this child that I brought into this world out of wedlock, and she's about 1 year old at this time. But my God. So when she said that to me, it broke something in me. And I said, okay, I'll have sex with you. And I had sex with her. And that's all she got was sex. We didn't get married. Shortly after we had sex, probably about 2 months later, if that long, I cheated on her because she opened up Pandora's box again. She told me I had no value. So I was like, well, shoot, if my D ain't worth nothing, well, I'm going to give it to you and you get some D and you get some D.
Right. Everybody gets some D.
Everybody gets some D. Here, take it. So I just said, here, let me just go ahead and spread love around. So that's what happened. And God reminded me of that on my vow of abstinence episode. I was writing a letter and I said, I finally believe that I am worth the wait. And in writing that letter, God took me back to that broken 19-year-old boy who heard and believed the lie that a girl told me that my wife, if it was her, would be getting nothing. I was trying to give her commitment, and all she wanted was just let's have sex. Because, in her young mind, she was probably saying that, everybody else had this with you, well, why can't I have that too? And I was trying to give her something that no one else has ever had from me. And that was loyalty. That was fidelity. That was actual my I do. That was every bit of me. And so God took me back that moment to heal that broken boy. But he also reminded me of the fact that we're never taught that. We're not taught to be virgins, to save ourselves, that our bodies have any value as a man. Matter of fact, we're told the opposite. Man, go sow your oats. Have fun. Boys will be boys. And then we get older, men will be men. So think about it. We're told boys will be boys when we're boys, doing all kind of toxic behaviors. Then we become man, and you tell your homegirl, or even your mother or somebody older than you, my husband cheated on you. Well, a man will be a man.
Right. It's just all these like kind of passes that's just who they are. They just out there. They're too weak to control it. That's what it makes it sound like.
That's exactly what it sounds like. And I don't like to embrace weaknesses. I don't like to be able to, the Bible says, Paul says, I will boast in my weakness. Okay, there go that church coming out.
That's all right. You got to let it flow.
I will boast in my weakness. But what it is that we're wise enough. I want to be wise enough to be able to admit my weakness, but not be submitted to my weakness. That's a different story. So I want to be able to say, yes, I'm weak in this area. God, where I am weak, I am made strong in you. So I need you to be in this environment, to be in this deficiency so that I can be stronger in it. But I don't ever want to just lay down and be like, well, I mean, heck, everybody got their own weaknesses. So I just cheat on my wife. So that's just what it is. A man can't be faithful to one woman for the rest of his life. I want to be able to say, it may be a challenge, but I need to go do some pre-work, some prep work to heal that broken 19-year-old boy so that my future wifey can get Lateris 3.0 and get the healed version of me where my ex-wife didn't get the benefit of receiving that man, and so that's what that episode was about. And thanks to you, Aries, that's why I said God is so intentional on divine connections, because what happened was I said, Aries, God wants me to get Pastor Conway on my podcast. She's like, that's going to be hard. She said, that's going to be very hard because he doesn't do anything outside the church. She said, but what I would do, if it's God's will, that he'll be on there. She just understand her assignment. Her assignment was to just make the connection and let God do whatever he needs to do. If she was a person that wasn't in alignment with God, she'd be like, listen, I ain't finna put my name out there. I ain't finna go do that. I ain't finna introduce you to nobody. I ain't got no dog in that fight. You go figure out your own way. But she said, all right, I'm gonna connect you. She said, his assistant, his admin is a part of my life group and my life team. So I'll just ask her the best course of action. And she said, all right, give me his information. I'll call him tomorrow at noon. We got on the phone. I shared with her my vision to have Pastor Conway on the episode where I took a vow of abstinence. She said, hey, listen, she echoed what Aries said. Pastor Conway don't do stuff outside the church. He probably won't do it, but just the way you talk, he would probably just love to just have a conversation with you because you're so real. Because I told him, I said, yeah, Pastor Conway's a cop blocker. That's how I answered the phone. I said, he fell out laughing. I said, yeah, I went to his church and he's sitting up there telling me this and this. And she just died laughing. She's like, okay, he would love to talk to you. Fast forward, we set up a meeting with Pastor Conway. Pastor Conway got on the phone with me one day. I talked to him, answered the phone with him. You a cop blocker, Pastor Conway. He said it straight to him. He died laughing. He said, what? I said, man, let me tell you something. And I just, because I'm going to always keep it lit.
And that's what I told you. I said, if all you got to do, once you actually, we're going through the process, and I'm like, okay, like, we're going to know this is God. Before I even did all that, I said, we're going to know this is God if this happens. Like, we're going to know, because I'm telling you that that's just not how he rolls. But I'm going to just be obedient. And then Martha was obedient. And then, when you got on, and I'm like, I told him, I was like, be yourself, because he is very, oh yeah, like, don't try to impress him or be anything other than what you already are, and he'll be fine. He's gonna love it. It'll be fine. Just be yourself. And I was so glad when you told me that you were, like, you just were yourself.
Because I said, because you understand, I've been around a lot of pastors, some of the most prestigious and well-known pastors, and I realized they ain't no different than us. The problem is that we have a tendency to treat them like deity and exalt them up and put them on a pedestal. So with me being around them, I said, nah, if he gonna like me, or he gonna be like, this joker's a heathen, but he gonna see who I am. I'm gonna keep it 1,000. And that's what I said. I said, Pastor Conway, listen, I told him, I said, listen, I had something lined up after your church service and smashed. I told him that. He was just like, this joker is crazy. I said, I did. And then you over here messing up the situation. I said, man, listen, I said, man, here I am setting up this situation, and you over here really cop blocking me, because now what you said is all in my mind and messing up my erection and all this type of stuff. I can't even.
Because that was the service that he was like, and he had I went and got the clip for you. Remember so I used to be in the technology ministry. So he was like, on this, I said, tell me the day and what service you was at, and I might can get a clip of the video for him to put on the podcast. And it was the day that pastor was like, I feel God talking to me over here. You know how pastor be like, I feel something over here. It was like, you want to go out there and sow your oats out, whatever out here. He said, I was sitting right there. He was looking right at me. I'm like, oh my God.
He made me so uncomfortable. He made me so uncomfortable, because I was on the way to church, and one of my friends was like, Lateris, are you practicing abstinence? I said, absolutely not. She's like, well, why aren't you? She said, why aren't you? I said, you're a Christian. Why aren't you practicing abstinence? I said, because I'm a Christian and I'm not practicing abstinence. And she's like, well, I expect more from you. I said, how am I going to disappoint you with what I'm doing with my penis? Like, what they got to do with you? You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, you're such a quality guy, and you need to be such. I said, I'm still a quality guy. And listen, let me do what I do. This is my healing process. So let me do what I do. And so she was just like, I'm gonna pray that Pastor Conway says something to you in the service, because she asked me where I was going. I said I was on my way to visit one community, and I've been wanting to visit for the longest. And she said, I'm gonna pray that he says something to you that convicts you. I said, Pastor Conway can't say nothing to me. I said, nobody can say nothing that's gonna convict me. I know what the word says. I'm having sex, and I know what the word says. Listen, I don't want to have sex with my wife, whoever God brings into my life. But in the meantime, in between time, on the road to Damascus, okay, let me smash some stuff. I gotta get this out of my system, so to speak.
Right.
And she was like, I'm just gonna say this. So then when I sat in church and he said that and said, listen, and at the very end of his tirade that he went through, he said, listen, I know I'm talking to somebody, because I didn't say this in any other service, so I know I'm talking to somebody here. And I was just like, I said, that was so really. He said, I ain't got time to fool with you. He did that. I ain't got time to fool with you. And he walked off. I said, so disrespectful. And so at that moment, I said, God is calling me to something. That was January. That's before.
That was a year before. That was almost a year before, right?
So that was the year before. So that was January of 2020. Mm-hmm. Then April the 15th, God has me do this podcast. I have Jay Barnett on there for an episode called Heal Brother Heal. And I confessed, I say, my son found some condoms in the car. I talk about that on the thing. And my son was like, Lateris, what are you doing? When you say, Lateris, Dad, what are you doing with these condoms in the car? I said, what do you think I'm doing with these condoms in the car? You're a Christian. You shouldn't be having sex. You're not married. I was like, how do you think I deal with raising you? I mean,
that's my vice.
Right.
That's my vice. I need a stress reliever to deal with you. You're the problem, not me. You're the problem. And so I shared that on the podcast, and we laughed about it. But then it was my son, who I adopted the year before, that's calling me to the carpet saying, Dad, I expect more from you.
Right.
Now, if I was so puffed up with pride, I wouldn't even be able to share that story because I'd be like, "Oh, you stay at the child's place. You don't tell me what to do. Yeah, I'm your daddy." I say, "God, however you said out of the mouth of babes." Yes, all right, well, let me just listen. Let me learn. Even though I'm not willing to submit to that right now, I will listen. Then fast forward, then December comes along, and God says, "Now it's time for you. I let you have your little fun. You didn't have a baby out of this. You didn't get AIDS out of this. You were doing some reckless stuff. And here it is. I gave you grace over your sin.
And mercy.
But I want you to know that it was grace. Accept the grace. Now I need to call you to me now because I got bigger work to do with you. I got plans for you. I have a purpose in your life. Now come to me. I want all of you now." I was like, okay, I give myself away.
Because when he called me and was like, "We got the date, we're about to do the episode," I'm like, "Oh my God," like that was so real. But because I'm like, I've heard him talking about not being abstinent. And so when he's telling me that he's thinking it, I'm like, well, let me go on and be obedient because this got to be God the way he was, not even thinking about it.
I said, I'm gonna double down on whatever my decision is. It's like I'm gonna stand 10 toes down. I'm saying, this is me. Like, you're gonna take me as I am or not, and it's okay. Even when times I've met women that were practicing abstinence, and they're like, "Well, I'm abstinent." I'm like, God bless you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh wow!
Interrupt that for real. I don't want to do anything to interrupt that. I don't want to be a demon used to destroy your journey. Do what you do. God bless you. I can find somebody else that's on my program. You know what I'm saying? And it is what it is. And my mindset during that time was literally like, if a woman wanted more, if she was like, "Oh, I believe that we can have something," we gotta be like, "You ain't the person I'm gonna have sex with," because I want to be straight transactional. Right. I want to be straight up. Hey, I want some, you want some. Hey, we gonna come in agreement as grown folks do, and then we good. I don't need no drama. Don't be showing up at my office. We good. Don't be sitting up here talking about Latera's done did me like this. You know what I'm saying? Everything was good. Everything was peaceful. God said, "Listen."
So either way, you were keeping it lit, absolutely, even in that and in this.
Yes.
So the way that he's able to use you as a man, having an episode, y'all got to go check it out, where you are taking this vow, and the pastor who convicted you earlier that year, is the one that helped kind of walk you into this, and other men are now coming up and telling you that they're practicing.
They watched the episode and they took vows of abstinence, and they taking vows, and they said, "Wow, it was so real." And that's the thing about it, is that this podcast is so much bigger than my personal journey. It was in this podcast journey, I sponsored 3 other couples getting married, in an episode called Black Love Matters, where I paid for 3 couples to get married, and I had donations from different people that join in. And it's a beautiful journey because I'm learning more about myself, and I'm learning so much about love as a whole. What works? How do you get to 25 years? How do you get to, I got divorced 2 weeks shy of 10 years. First, let me get to 10 years. Let me see how I can get the next 2 weeks in to get to 10 years. And then let's graduate to 11 and 12 and 30 and 40 years. I want to see what that feels like, and to do the prep work now so that I can build some character and some integrity, that when things don't go the way I think they should go, that I'm not lashing out at the woman. I see that's what's wrong. I'm finna go do this. I can sit back and be like, "Oh, this is just a little ripple in our marriage. We good. And stay committed to the commitment and to my Christ, and say, all right, we good. And we weather that storm, conquer that thing, and keep moving on. And that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about the journey to forever.
I love it. The preparation, the journey. And we listen to other people, and some people we don't listen to. So I am so glad to hear this from you. You're taking accountability and responsibility for your actions to say, "Hey, I want to be a better man for my next wife."
100%.
I won't mention the gentleman's name that everyone talks about on TikTok. So listen to Latarius. Subscribe. He has some great content.
Everybody call him Latarius.
We do. I apologize. So I do want to know, as part of your podcast, and this is the part that I really like, is did you write these letters to your future wife? Like, where did that stem from? I know you talked about it, but is this something you were doing prior to the podcast, where you were just writing these letters?
I would write a couple of posts on these letters by way of a Facebook post. on Facebook, and I only did about 4 or 5 of them. And so what I liked when I used to watch Reverend Run show, Run's House, he would sit in the bathtub and he would sit there and make these little text tweets or whatever. He'll make his little, I guess, blog or something. And then I said, I like that. And I said, I want to write letters at the end of my podcast. And I was like, now, granted, my homegirl hates when I say this, but she used to say that when I would write these letters, she was like, that's so corny. That's so corny when I would do it on Facebook. And I was like, so in the back of my head, I was like, I don't want to be lame. She said, I'm going to be lame worldwide. People going to make memes out of me talking about this whack dude that's in over making letters. And God said, why are you listening to her? She ain't even married. You know what I'm saying? Like you're listening to somebody that wants what you had before. You're a man. Be true to yourself. And I said, okay, God.
Be true to yourself.
Authentically who I am. I'm a writer. Right. That my highest form of communication is writing. So I am going to write these letters and I'm going to pour my heart into these letters. And that's what I did.
And he writes, okay? He can write, y'all. Listen. I'm like, I hope my man can write because
hope he can spell.
I told you I'll be quoting. I'm like, wait, hold on. It's one that I literally just from, and what episode was that from? He said, I'll add wrinkles to my brain after enrolling in University. I won't settle for anything less than summa cum laude. I said, boy, you better talk that talk. I am not playing with you.
You need to write a book of quotes about your Christian wife.
Well, I am going to do that. And the truth with that, and when I said that, I want to revise that because I want to say magna cum laude because I want to say that now. And I said, and I was like, all right, whatever, just leave it as it is. It's authentic because I want to be the highest honors. But I am planning on writing a book where I just write letters, and it'll be more generic, but it'll be letters to, and it's got the tagline, but it's basically letters of affirmation to pretty much comfort you or encourage you on your journey to your future hubby or whatever. So it just be letters that people could read so that they can stay in the mindset of knowing someone is out there manifesting you, praying for you, covering you, speaking and trying to bring you into his existence. He may not have the words that I have in writing, but I want to create that atmosphere in people's minds.
This will be your version of Sierra's prayer.
I was just going to say that. Now, we know you're praying. We know you're a praying man, but look, you over here writing letters.
Yeah, I'll write 365 letters.
How many?
Book out of 365 letters.
Oh, that's what you're going to, for the
book. Okay. 365 letters. And some letters may be short, maybe sitting up there, hey, babe, I'm thinking about you. You're beautiful. Hey, I'm over here trying to shed these pounds for you. Whatever, just whatever it is, just letters, whatever. But I'm going to write, and I challenge myself to say if I wrote 5 letters a day, then I could have it done in like 90 days or something like that, or whatever the math was, or in whatever it was. But I said that I was going to goal myself into doing that. And maybe I just need to take a trip somewhere and go to some log cabins and just write.
That could be a really good idea. I definitely know that people will be buying it.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk really quickly about, he is now also a TEDx speaker. So don't be trying to get him to talk for free no more. Okay. I already told him, I'm like, you have a fee now. So don't be out here speaking for free, okay?
Today's rates are not the same as yesterday's rate. What's the
exactly? No, they are not. So you have, what was it called? A marriage hack?
A marriage hack in divorce.
Okay, so give us your theory, your concept around, he did a 13 minute talk.
13.
Y'all can go look it up, but basically within this talk, he talks about his kind of hack that he thinks will be really good to potentially end, the frequency of divorce. So tell us about what that hack is.
Cool. So the hack, I want to give the whole thing away because I want people to watch it. I hope you put a link in the thing. But the main concept is it was derived from 50% of marriages ending in divorce. and how marriage is one of the only licenses that we get with no pre-qualification, with no certification, with no requirements. You can just go right now and go get a marriage license. If you have the cost of the filing fee, you got a license. Everything else was that easy, but you can just grab a license. And I said, why is it that one of the most challenging things that we can get into, the most life-altering decisions that we can make, have no prerequisite, no requirements, no continuing education courses, no life skills, no marriage skills, no parental skills, no nothing, no training whatsoever to get into. And I believe that that's the reason why 50% of marriages end in divorce, 60% of second-time marriages end in divorce, and 73% of third marriages will end in divorce.
I need to just give up.
Stop it. Stop it.
I'm out. I got a small window for my success.
No, but the reality is this. Yes, it's a small window if you did the exact same thing that you did the other 2 times.
That's true.
And so what changes the trajectory of that is saying that, what happened? Who was I in that moment? Who did I choose? And now let's go and heal that brokenness. Let's really understand the gravity of marriage. Hence the reason why I did the marriage vow series in season 3 of my podcast. I said, let's understand these vows. Because I stood before a pastor. I said these wonderful vows. I said it, and I believed it when I said it. And it was nothing in me that made me think I would ever get a divorce. But I did. So why did those vows not take root? Why didn't I regurgitate those vows daily? Why wasn't it those moments where I experienced for better or for worse? Why didn't I continue on and fight for that? Why was that? Why, when we went through our for richer or for poor moment, that when struggles hit me financially, I didn't feel like I deserved to be married anymore. I made a whole Facebook post that I said, I don't deserve a wife. God dang it, I ain't got no money no more. I'm struggling. What in the world? And so what happened was I attached my value to finances. So what happened was, while I was yet a single man, I said, you know what? I'm going to accomplish these things economically. And then once I get my own condo, I'm going to get my own place, I'm going to get this much money in the bank account, then I deserve a wife. When I hit those financial struggles, I said, I no longer deserve a wife. And so I subconsciously tried to sabotage my marriage. But I took vows that said for richer or for poor. So I had to now unpack, as I went through this marriage vow series, this vow that I took was supposed to sustain me until death do we part. And so the TED Talk was all about that, unpacking that theory. And I introduced a theory in that TED Talk that I want you to take a listen to and comment under the TED Talk video and see if you agree or disagree.
Well, I definitely agree.
I agree.
I was like, and it's funny because I saw church folks in there, but basically you just saying this, you know, and I'm like, people, come on, guys. We just gotta, let's just we put God in a box, okay? So like, you know, we all rooted and ground, you know, church folks and stuff like that. But I just feel like, you know, because I definitely, when I took the vows, and I took them twice, y'all. So I remember the day of my wedding the first time, and I did not want to go through with it. But we had 500 people out there waiting. And I was like, wait, I told my dad, I said, if you would have just, when we were getting ready to go down to because we had to get in the car to drive to the place. I was like, if you would have been like, if you don't want to do this, we could take a right. I would have been like, please, Daddy, save me. Like, I probably would have said,
right then.
I would have, you know, I just needed to know that it was okay because it was so much pressure. Like, seriously. So while I was standing there taking those vows, I was kind of like, I mean, I'm taking them, but I wasn't all the way truly believing that. But one thing with that you did say before is that I got married again, but I did not do that work before that. It was like 2 years later, I got married again.
Yeah.
So I thought that it was going to be cool because we were friends and this should be easy because we were friends and we're just going to move this into a relationship. But I've been divorced now 8 years. This is how much work I've had to do to really, and I'm still doing it like every day, being like, oh no, you had that wrong. And even Pastor Conway, every year he does a relationship series And I'll see him. I always end up seeing him somewhere outside the church or something. He'd be like, hey, how'd I do today? You know, because he was in there with me, you know, when I was going through my divorce. We did counseling with him for a year. And I'd be like, I ain't ready. You know, like everything you're saying, because he'd be talking about long suffering and all the things. And I was like, ooh, I ain't there.
I don't know if I want to sign up for that.
Because I really wasn't getting it, you know. I'm going to all the single stuff and they're like the preferred life. And I'm like, I ain't, none of this was resonating. It's now a point where in the last couple years that I've been like, oh no, like, and I can actually enjoy being a single person in this season and really work on the things that I saw not great, you know, in those other relationships that I want to be better at, you know, when I get into another relationship. So that's why I love this whole thing, because you really are taking us on your journey. And there's so many variations of what relationships look like.
Totally.
And I'll be like, how do you find all these people?
Right. Like, where is he finding?
When I tell you, and it's the scariest thing when you're trying to find guests, because I'm like, God, I don't even know who to talk to. Like, I just be like, okay. And then something will happen. I may see something someone posts. I may have a conversation with a friend. I'll be like, oh, I need you on the podcast. Oh, we got to talk about this, because something will resonate with me about my own personal journey. So it's always interesting to go on said journey, because it's literally my journey. And in times where I may not have a guest, y'all quickly see there will be no episode today, you know. And then Aries has always told me, why don't you just do the episode by yourself? You know, I would never, it was hard for me to do that. And through her encouragement, I have done episodes by myself, but I really don't like it. I feel like I'm just talking to nobody.
It is one time. He is so funny, y'all. Y'all gotta go see his podcast, like for real, because he did one with himself. You know, his nickname Terry.
Yes.
And I said, boy, when I said I like Terry. Where Terry at?
Terry that hood. Terry hood.
And he like basically had him talking to himself. You just gotta go see it. I'm sorry.
It was literally me. You'll physically see me talking to me at the table. People start thinking I had a twin. They're like, oh, you have a twin. I'm like, no, that's me. It's like, how's that you sitting there talking? How'd you do that? I was like, that's production, you know?
And I think that, first of all, yes, because he's eloquent in his words.
Oh my God.
But you can feel my mom watches this podcast. She's like, that boy, no, he need to be preaching somewhere. That's her every week. But you know, she loved that podcast. And so, and that's mostly because she's like, he just got it. You know, you can tell that like you were gifted to do this. You know, this is not just you saying, oh, let me go. You know, people be creating stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But when you know, like this makes sense, and you're skilled in you know, production as well, because it's quality. Like it looks professional. When you did the marriages for the 3 people, like I'm like, boy, this need to be on
TV.
Like,
that's the goal.
Yeah, I'm like, we need all this to be on somebody's network.
That's the goal. That's the mission.
And you know what? I love it because it's a breath of fresh air with everything that we have with this reality TV that's projecting a negative image of relationships. It's great to have something to come over and hear people where they're making it and they've overcome through the long suffering, through sickness and health, and for richer and poorer, because we get caught up in this thing of what culture says.
Yes. My goal is to one day not only have a talk show or have this on a network, but to actually do a dating show. But the way I would do a dating show, it ain't going to be like, see, like a lot of these dating shows, it's so manufactured. They try to create drama. I don't want drama. I know people say that's what sells and all that stuff. I don't want to sell. I want to heal. I want to create a healthy environment where couples could literally, physically, emotionally connect. And it won't be a competition either. It won't be like, oh, you can vote this person off and all that. Who the heck voting people off in real life? You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, I want it to be loved. And if the connection isn't there, then by default, you will just stop talking to the said person. And if it's a show where you have 10 people, 10 males, 10 females, and you know, one of the guys ain't connecting with nobody, or the woman ain't connecting with nobody, she's gonna naturally say, ain't nobody here for me, and she's gonna leave. You know what I'm saying? So you like yourself out. You leave on your own, or if you want to, you just be sitting there just looking crazy, or you become the toxic person in the show where you over here trying to break up people. But we see that because that's what real life is about. You'll be dating somebody, and you get somebody that is toxic and broken that comes in and tries to destroy your relationship. So that person will get the reputation of you're a toxic person. You could have left, because there was no room for you right here, but you decide to sit around and be toxic and destroy everybody else's relationship. You know what I'm saying? So I want to create something like that, and it'd be therapeutic programs infused in the whole dating scenario with these people, and they can go through therapy and all this, and everything that they do, every challenge they do is all therapy based, and see what happens in that situation. See what type of divine connections take place.
Well,
the narrative.
I got a download of another connection that I need to make for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay. But yeah, because I mean, I just feel like when you get people who have an honest intention for things, like that's rare today. Like it's not something that at least is showcased frequently. So for me, I'm like, I'm all about being connected to people that are doing good, positive things. You know, we got enough of the negativity. Really it's sickening. Like I can't even look at it.
I was looking at a show. It was the show she was on, and I was like, that episode was boring. And I said, we have to change the narrative of looking at positive things as boring. I'm like, I want to see what the juicy drama, stuff, right? Yeah. Like we always want to see the drama, but we need to see what healthy looks like.
Very
healthy
true.
And whole.
Yeah.
Authentic love.
Yes.
Who said that? Somebody, I had a guest on my podcast that said, our marriage is boring. I think that was, they said it was boring. It's not a lot of drama by what people say. I think that was Carrington and Ashley. And they said, yeah, it's boring. We don't have a lot of drama. We ain't got a lot of, you know what I'm saying? And so to the outward, if there was a TV show about it, you'd be like, okay, they're going to work. They're doing this stuff. This is boring. You know what I'm saying?
I used to say that though. I was like, if I ever was on a reality, like, what are they gonna be having me do? Right? I mean, now I'll be doing a whole bunch, but I used to be like, what they gonna see? Me getting up, kids get to just like, you know, it's gonna be some basic stuff. Ain't nobody. I don't have friends in my life that be like, girl, you know, like I don't have any of the like Real Housewives of Atlanta. Yeah, exactly. I don't have that. Our stuff is just real chill, like.
Yeah. But that's what real life is about. And see, we need to normalize normal.
Normal, yes. Right.
We need to normalize normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, toxicity is what and what happens is, if we're honest, we choose mates like that. So like we say stuff like H's be winning. You know, we say stuff like, you know, we all want a thug. You know what I'm saying? It's like the most toxic version of that person is the person that's most adored and admired and pursued. So it's the H's be winning of the chicks that's twerking and popping and doing all that and all this crazy stuff on the gram and showing her body parts and all this. You'd be like, yeah, she winning. How is she really winning? What is she winning? What is she winning? You know, and the guy that's the thug that's running around doing all kind of crazy stuff. At the end of the day, we need to normalize normal.
Because I think about that when I'm thinking about bringing somebody into my life. You know, I have children and I'd be like looking at their environment and even with their kids and stuff. And I'd be like, no, because we pretty like
boring over here.
Yeah, I'm like, we're not used to all that. Like my kids would be in some like,
trauma.
What is this? What you done brought up in here?
Right.
Looking at me crazy. But no, I think that is so real because you know, we can talk all day about this. I'm about military. We'll talk for an hour every week just about random relationship stuff. But I wanna highlight you and y'all. This dude, he be doing stuff like all positive and stuff, like in the community and stuff. But you are adopting parent. You are a single man who has adopted 2 children, one your nephew and one that was not related to you, who was actually Armani, who's a teenager. And so you have started this just this couple days ago. You were talking about how you want to do a what is it called? Kingdom Royale.
Royale.
Can you tell us a little bit about what Kingdom Royale will be and what your concept is or what you're thinking for that?
So Kingdom Royale is a luxury foster home for boys. Oftentimes when kids are placed in foster care, they get the lowest level of treatment. And I say treatment per se, a lot of times, a lot of foster parents, not all of them, but a lot of them, they'll just give them the bare minimum. When I adopted, or even when I was fostering the kings that I was fostering, that I made sure that they had everything, that I put them in the best clothes. They, when you're a kid in CPS custody, you get treatment. They give you access to all the therapeutic programs that you need. So I made sure that they had that. Whatever dreams and goals that they had, I made sure that I invested in that. And Kingdom Royale is going to be a home that I want to look castle-like a little palace for about 12 young kings. And we're going to transform them from foster kids to kings. And it's going to be a beautiful program. I'm in this fundraising campaign that I just launched about a week ago after this amazing woman who lost her son to murder back in April. In DeSoto, her son was killed at 20 years old by this young 16-year-old boy, and her older son that was 22, quote unquote, took vengeance of his brother's death and allegedly shot the killer that he was told that was the killer of his brother. And that's what happened. But then the actual killer, the person who confessed to it, is actually in jail right now. Like I said, a young 16-year-old boy. And so when we talk about all this, here you have this 22-year-old boy, a 20-year-old guy that was killed, a 16-year-old boy that's going to serve 24 years in prison, and then this other young boy that was killed in the process. So here's 4 young kings whose lives were affected. 2 of them dead, and 2 of them in jail, and it's 4 of them. And then the lives of their siblings and all that other stuff that are dealing with the aftermath of it all, and the pain and the mothers and all that stuff, the family members. I said, what I can do is help change the trajectory of these young boys' life, 12 at a time. And when the kid is in foster care, this month is Foster Care Awareness Month and Adoption Awareness Month. National Day of Adoption takes place the Saturday before Thanksgiving every year. And that was the time that I adopted my 2 young kings. So I said, I want to be very intentional with my life, be intentional with my time. And it's scary to try to raise $2.8 million when I got about $2.80 in my account. But I said, listen, I want the dash on my tombstone to mean something. I always tell people I'm working on my dash. There's nothing I can do with the day that I was born. I had I couldn't change the day I was born, and I can't change the day I die. But that dash is all me. So I'm working on my dash, and I'm gonna do everything in my power to make that dash mean something. So
I love it.
As y'all hear about this, then let it be done. And then God was telling me out of my own little deficiencies and fear, he said, Laterrence, you got 2 Emmy nominations from the vlogs that you did for adopting these young kings. You were on A&E, and they've been on A&E. They've been showing you on A&E Court Cam every Wednesday since Martin Luther King's birthday. You also were on Good Morning America. You have all this content that you can show to put together your call to action. Do it. Stop being scared. Do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it afraid. I'll do it afraid. So this is scary for me. The initial fundraising is $2.8 million. Scares the crap out of me. But it's like,
when you know that it's God ordained, then you can kind of, it's not on you at the end of the day.
God's will, God's will.
Yep. God's will. Exactly. So let him lead the way, and that mother was your first donation, right?
She met with me the Monday on November the 1st with a $5,000 check, and then everybody else that kept trying to get money. Then her cousin, who her cousin I went to school with, and the lady who gave me the $5,000, she watches my podcast, and she was like, I just want to help. And I was just like, oh wow, okay. And truth be told, she's been trying to give it to me since about May. And I just kept saying, no, let's wait. Let's wait. Oh, let's wait. Because you take somebody money, it gets serious at that point.
Like, oh, I gotta do something.
Yeah, I said, let me wait. And so she finally, she was like, hey, I'm still trying to give you this. And God said, why are you so scary? And I was like, I can't do it. He said, I know you can't, but I can.
Exactly.
I said, okay. All right. You win. Let's go do it. And so her cousin called me up and was like, I want to match her donation. I was like, okay, wait, let me get my bank account set up for that. Let me get the LLC set up for all this and get it done. And so that's what I did last week. I spent last week setting up my bank accounts, getting all that. I'm supposed to speak at a panel for foster care and all that. Don't know when this episode will air, but I'll be speaking on that and this month. And so it's God just been connecting all this type of stuff. And the panel that I'll be speaking on is a bunch of white folks. Amen.
And he has a speaker fee, so y'all need to make sure that they know.
Look at you. You're being obedient. You're surrendering. Right? And look at you discipling.
Discipling young kings.
Yes. We love it.
If they want to donate, where can they go and donate?
It's going to be kingdomroyale.com once I get the website up. I'm going to have that up in the next 2 days. Well, when this comes out, it'll be up.
It will be up. Okay, perfect. We're excited to support that. We'll definitely even keep a link of that, and we'll put it on our website so that we can just, if anybody, if 2 or 3, 4, or 5 people come to our website, they'll get to see the link. That's
good. Don't matter. That'd be two donations I didn't have.
Exactly.
And we have just thoroughly enjoyed you. This has been a wonderful conversation.
It always is.
Yes. So thank you for being our guest.
And how can people find you and your podcast and all the things, even though we're going to put links down there? But just,
you can go on YouTube and search Dear Future Wifey. And then you can go on Instagram and look me up, Lateris R. Whitfield.
And go subscribe. Yes. Subscribe. Don't be a lurker.
Don't be shacking.
Yeah. Right. Don't be shacking. Lurker. She said you're going to be a lurker.
Right. We thank you so much, Lateris. We can't wait to see what more happens and when you hit that 100,000 subscriber mark by the end of this year. So, speaking it into existence. And Kingdom Royale and all the other things. We're just gonna keep on supporting. We'll be your silent marketers over here, telling people to go to your podcast.
I appreciate it.
And we've been your first subscribers for a long time. We were one of your first subscribers.
That's what I'm saying. I appreciate it. I wish y'all remembered how many subscribers I had back then when y'all joined.
I know. Maybe you can look. You probably can see.
You can see history, probably.
Probably go back to
when y'all subscribe. It'll show when y'all subscribe. Ain't gonna say I had 532.
Oh, it won't say. Okay.
It'll say probably around the month or something. Maybe I'll go look. I never looked at that. That'd be kind of interesting.
Would be. All right, y'all. Thank you so much, and we will stay tuned to what's going on with Mr. Lateris R. Whitfield. But thank you for joining the Bold Black.
Applause again. Give me my applause.
Hold on.
Okay. God bless.